The great chamber was silent. 1,000 alien delegates sat in their seats, watching the scene unfold before them. The air smelled of tension and fear. Something terrible was about to happen. High Arbiter stood at the center of the room. She was tall and beautiful in a strange way. Her body was made of living crystal that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow colors. She had ruled the Dominion for 300 years. Her empire had conquered 63 species across the galaxy. No one had ever defeated them. No one had ever dared to refuse them. Today, she would add another world to her collection. Director stood across from her. She was the human ambassador. Compared to the crystalline giant before her, she looked small and fragile. Her skin was dark brown. Her hair was gray and pulled back from her face. Her eyes were calm and steady as she listened to the High Arbiter speak. The Dominion claims the 3 human colony worlds in the expanse, announced. Her voice rang through the chamber like bells made of ice. You will surrender these worlds within 30 cycles. You will remove all human presence from this region of space. This is not a request. This is a command. Did not move. She did not blink. She simply stood there with her hands folded in front of her. And if we refuse, she asked. Her voice was quiet but clear. Laughed. The sound was like glass breaking against stone. Then we will take them by force. We will destroy your fleets. We will burn your colonies. We will remind the galaxy what happens to those who stand against the Dominion. Around the chamber, other aliens shifted in their seats. Many of them had seen this before. They would make their demands. The smaller species would refuse, and then the Dominion would crush them without mercy. It had happened 63 times. It would happen again. But some of the delegates were not watching the High Arbiter. They were watching the human. The ambassador, a creature that looked like a tall praying mantis covered in blue chitin, was gripping the arms of his chair so hard that his claws were leaving marks. The ETH merchant delegation, a group of furry beings with 6 arms each, were whispering to each other in terrified voices. The sentinel of the collective, an ancient machine intelligence, had stopped all movement entirely. They knew something that did not. High Arbiter said slowly, I must ask you one question before we proceed. Waved her crystalline hand in dismissal. Ask your question, human. It will change nothing. Are you certain? Asked. Are you absolutely certain that you want to do this? For a moment, the chamber was completely still. The other aliens held their breath. Some of them were already calculating the fastest routes back to their home systems. Some of them were composing messages to their governments. Some of them were praying to gods they had not believed in for centuries. Did not understand why the human was asking such a strange question. She had studied the intelligence reports on humanity. She knew everything about them. Humans were weak. They had no natural armor like the crystal skin. They had no venom like the stingers. They could not regenerate lost limbs like the ETH. They lived only 90 years on average. They were emotional and unstable. They fought wars among themselves constantly. Their technology was primitive compared to the ancient civilizations of the galaxy. They were nothing. I am certain, declared. The Dominion does not make idle threats. Submit or be destroyed. Those are your only choices. Nodded slowly. Something changed in her face. The calm expression did not disappear, but something hard appeared behind her eyes, something cold, something ancient. Very well, she said. Then on behalf of the United Human Coalition, I acknowledge your declaration of war. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small communication device. She pressed a single button and spoke 5 words. They chose this. Activate contingency. Then she put the device away and looked at with that same calm, steady gaze. The Dominion has made its decision, said. Now you will live with the consequences. Felt a strange sensation. She did not recognize it at first because she had never felt it before. It took her a moment to understand what it was. Doubt. She pushed the feeling aside. The Dominion had conquered 63 species. One more would make no difference. This session is concluded, she announced. The Dominion will begin military operations in 7 cycles. Prepare your worlds for occupation. She turned and walked out of the chamber, her crystal body catching the light with every step. Her guards followed behind her in perfect formation. As soon as she was gone, chaos erupted. The ambassador was already running toward the exit. His long legs carried him across the chamber faster than any other being could move. He was shouting orders into his communicator, telling his staff to evacuate immediately. The ETH merchants were not far behind. They scrambled over each other in their haste to leave, their 6 arms grabbing at everything within reach. One of them was crying. The sentinel finally moved. It turned its ancient metal head toward the human ambassador and spoke in a voice like grinding gears. "We warned them," it said. 50 years ago, when humanity first made contact with the conquered, we warned them. We told them what you were. They did not listen." Looked at the machine with tired eyes. "No one ever listens." "They will now," the sentinel replied. "After you are finished with them, every species in the galaxy will listen." It turned and walked away, its heavy metal feet echoing through the emptying chamber. Within minutes, almost every delegate had fled. Only a few remained. They were the ones who had done business with humanity, the ones who had visited Earth, the ones who knew. A young ETH merchant approached. His fur was standing on end with fear, but his curiosity was stronger. "Director," he said, his voice shaking, "I have traded with your people for 20 years. I have visited your world. I have seen your cities and your art and your children playing in the streets. You seemed so peaceful, so kind." Looked at him with something like sadness. "We are kind," she said, "when we choose to be." "Then why are the others so afraid? Why did the ambassador run like prey fleeing a predator?" Was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "Do you know what a persistence hunter is?" The merchant shook his head. "On our world, millions of years ago, our ancestors developed a unique way of hunting. They did not have claws or fangs or venom. They were not fast enough to catch their prey in a sprint, so they did something else. They chased their prey, not for minutes, not for hours, for days. They would follow an animal across entire continents, never stopping, never resting, until the animal's heart gave out from exhaustion." She paused and looked toward the door where they had departed. "Our prey was always faster than us, stronger than us, more dangerous than us, and we hunted them all to extinction, every single one. We killed everything that threatened us, and then we kept killing because we had forgotten how to stop." The merchant was trembling now. "We come from a world so hostile that most species would not survive a single day there. Volcanoes, earthquakes, ice ages, plagues, predators that could tear us apart with a single bite. And we did not just survive, we conquered. We became the apex predators of a death world." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "They see our short lives and our soft skin and our emotional nature, and they think we are weak. They do not understand. Those things do not make us weak. They make us desperate. They make us creative. They make us utterly, completely, terrifyingly unwilling to lose." She picked up her belongings and began to walk toward the exit. "Tell your people to stay away from space for the next year," she said over her shoulder. "It is about to become very unpleasant." The merchant stood alone in the empty chamber, her words echoing in his mind. Outside, across the galaxy, the human war machine was already waking up. Fleet Commander the Unyielding stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the planet below. New Carthage, the first human colony world, the first target of the Dominion's great conquest. His fleet was magnificent. 400 warships hung in orbit like a swarm of crystal daggers. Each one was armed with weapons that could crack a continent in half. Each one carried thousands of soldiers, the finest warriors in the galaxy. They had never lost a war. They had never retreated from battle. Expected this campaign to last perhaps 2 weeks. The humans had nothing that could stop them. "Begin orbital scans," he commanded. "Show me their defenses." His officers worked at their stations. Moments later, the results appeared on the main display. Frowned. The planet was empty. No, not empty. The cities were still there. The infrastructure was intact. Power plants were running. Water treatment facilities were operating. But there were no people, no vehicles moving on the roads, no ships in the air, no signals from communication devices. 3 million humans had lived on New Carthage. Now it looked like a ghost world. "Where did they go?" demanded. "Unknown, Commander," his science officer replied. "Our scans show no mass evacuation. No transport ships have left the system. They are still here somewhere. They are simply hiding." Hiding? The word felt wrong in his mind. The Dominion's enemies did not hide. They stood and fought and died with honor, or they surrendered and begged for mercy. They did not vanish like smoke. "Send down the ground forces," ordered. "Find them, secure the capital city." 12,000 shock troops descended to the surface in armored. They were the elite of the Dominion military. Their crystal bodies could withstand most energy weapons. Their training was perfect. Their discipline was absolute. They landed in the central plaza of New Carthage's capital city. The buildings around them were silent and dark. The streets were empty. The only sound was the wind blowing through abandoned vehicles. Squad leader led her unit down the main avenue. Her soldiers moved in perfect formation, covering every angle. Their weapons were charged and ready, but there was nothing to shoot. "This feels wrong," one of her soldiers said. "Where are they?" Agreed, but she did not say so. Doubt was weakness. The Dominion did not tolerate weakness. "Stay focused," she commanded. "They cannot hide forever." They reached an intersection. 3 streets branched off in different directions. Was about to give orders when she heard something. A click. The building on her left exploded. The blast threw across the street. She crashed into a wall and fell to the ground. Her crystalline body cracked in a dozen places. Her ears were ringing. Smoke and dust filled the air. When she looked up, she saw her soldiers dying. Humans were everywhere. They came from the buildings, from the sewers, from holes in the ground that had not existed moments before. They wore camouflage that made them nearly invisible. They carried weapons that fired metal projectiles at incredible speed. The weapons fired beams of concentrated energy. Against most species, they were devastating. But the humans were not standing still. They were moving constantly, ducking behind cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. And their weapons, their primitive kinetic weapons, they should have been useless against crystal armor, but the humans had done something to them. The projectiles hit like hammer blows. Watched a soldier beside her take 3 rounds to the chest. His crystal body did not just crack, it shattered into 1,000 pieces. Explosive rounds. The humans had designed bullets that exploded on impact. Tried to raise her weapon, but a human appeared in front of her. He was young, with brown skin and dark eyes. He wore no armor. He carried a simple rifle. He should have been nothing compared to a warrior. He shot her twice in the head before she could fire. Across the city, the same scene repeated itself 100 times. They advanced in their perfect formations, and the humans tore them apart. They struck from the shadows and vanished before the Dominion soldiers could respond. They used the terrain like they had built it themselves. Every building was a fortress. Every street was a kill zone. In 3 hours, the Dominion lost 4,000 soldiers. On the flagship, received the reports with growing horror. "They are using chemical explosives," his tactical officer said. "Primitive combustion-based weapons. They should be ineffective against our armor, but they have modified them somehow. The explosive compounds are incredibly powerful." "How powerful?" demanded. "Powerful enough to crack diamond, Commander." Stared at the tactical display. Red markers showed where his troops were dying. The humans were not fighting like any enemy he had ever faced. They did not hold territory. They did not protect their cities. They simply killed and retreated, over and over again. "Commander," his communications officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the surface. It appears to be from the humans." "Put it through." The display flickered. A human face appeared. It was a woman with short gray hair and cold blue eyes. She wore a military uniform marked with symbols did not recognize. "Greetings, Commander," she said. Her voice was calm and pleasant, like she was discussing the weather. "My name is Colonel Sarah. I am the commanding officer of the New Carthage Defense Force. I wanted to welcome you to our world." Felt his anger rising. "You dare mock me? Your people are dying down there." Some of them agreed. "War has costs, we accept that. But I notice you have lost 4,000 soldiers in 3 hours. At this rate, your entire ground force will be dead by tomorrow morning." "We will send more." "Please do. We have plenty of ammunition." She smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Let me tell you something about humans, Commander. We are not like the other species you have conquered. We do not fight for honor or glory. We do not care about fair battles or noble last stands. We fight to win. That is all. We will use every dirty trick, every underhanded tactic, every violation of your precious warrior codes, and we will keep fighting until you are all dead or you go away." She leaned closer to the camera. "You wanted our worlds. You are welcome to try and take them. But every inch of ground will cost you a river of blood. Every city will be a graveyard. Every victory will be a defeat in disguise. We will make this war so painful, so expensive, so utterly miserable that your own people will drag you from power just to make it stop." The transmission ended. Stood in silence for a long moment. Then he made a decision. "Prepare the orbital bombardment systems," he commanded. "If they will not come out and fight, we will burn them out." His weapons officers began charging the massive cannons that could turn cities to glass. Watched the planet below with hatred in his heart. He would teach these humans the price of defiance. He never saw the human ships until it was too late. 17 vessels appeared inside his formation. They had been hidden using some kind of stealth technology the Dominion had never encountered. They were small. They carried no obvious weapons. They did not need weapons. They accelerated to full speed and aimed themselves at the largest warships. Understood what was happening 1 second before impact. "They are ramming us," he whispered. "They are using their ships as missiles." The first human vessel hit a Dominion battlecruiser at 3% of. The collision released more energy than a nuclear bomb. The battlecruiser did not explode. It ceased to exist. 16 more impacts followed in rapid succession. 16 more Dominion ships died. As alarms screamed and fires burned across his damaged flagship, pulled up the sensor data from the attack. The human ships had broadcast video feeds in the moments before impact. He made himself watch. The human pilots were smiling. They were laughing. They were saluting him through their cameras as they flew to their deaths. They had killed themselves just to hurt him. What kind of species did such things? His science officer answered the question had not asked aloud. Persistence predators, Commander. Apex hunters from a death world. They do not surrender. They do not retreat. They chase their prey until one of them dies. The officer paused and looked at with something like pity. "And Commander, they have been doing this for 1,000,000 years. They are very, very good at it." High Arbiter sat on her throne of living crystal and listened to the reports from the front lines. Each one was worse than the last. 2 months had passed since she declared war on humanity. In that time, the Dominion had lost over 100,000 soldiers. 47 warships had been destroyed. 3 entire fleets had been forced to retreat from human space. And the humans were not just defending anymore. They were attacking. Raids struck at Dominion supply lines. Saboteurs destroyed fuel depots and ammunition stores. Small teams of human soldiers appeared on worlds, killed important targets, and vanished before anyone could respond. The Dominion had never faced an enemy like this. "Bring me the intelligence cast," commanded. "I want answers." An hour later, 3 of the Dominion's finest analysts stood before her throne. They were scientists and strategists who had studied every species the Dominion had ever conquered. They knew more about alien psychology than anyone alive. "Tell me about the humans," said. "Tell me everything. I want to know how to defeat them." The senior analyst, a named, stepped forward. His crystal body was dull with age, but his mind was still sharp. "High Arbiter," he began, "I must first apologize. Our initial assessment of humanity was wrong, catastrophically wrong." "I gathered that," replied coldly. "Explain." Activated a holographic display. Images of humans appeared, along with data charts and biological diagrams. "We evaluated humanity based on standard criteria: physical capability, technological development, social stability. By every measure, they appeared weak. We did not understand what we were looking at." He changed the display to show a planet. It was mostly blue and green, with white clouds swirling across its surface. It looked peaceful, beautiful even. "This is Earth, the human. We classified it as a Type 5 garden world, pleasant climate, abundant resources, ideal for colonization." He paused. "We were wrong. Earth is not a garden world. It is a Class 12 death world." Frowned. "That is impossible. Class 12 worlds cannot support intelligent life. Nothing survives on them long enough to evolve." Humanity did, and that fact alone should have told us everything we needed to know. Began listing the dangers of Earth: volcanic eruptions that could destroy continents, earthquakes that could level cities, ice ages that covered half the planet in frozen death, diseases that killed millions in weeks, predators with claws and fangs and venom that could tear any creature apart. "The humans did not just survive these conditions," said. "They conquered them. Every predator that threatened them they hunted to extinction. Every disease that struck them they defeated. Every disaster that should have ended them they endured. They are the ultimate survivors." He changed the display again. Now it showed human anatomy. "Their bodies are not weak, they are efficient. They can survive injuries that would kill most species. They heal from wounds that should be fatal. They can function without sleep for days. They can survive in extreme heat and extreme cold. They can eat almost anything. They are biological machines designed for one purpose: to keep going no matter what." Another image appeared. This one showed human brain scans. "Their minds are even more dangerous. They form emotional bonds with everything: their comrades, their weapons, their vehicles, even their enemies. This makes them irrational by our standards. They will not abandon wounded soldiers. They will not retreat from lost causes. They will die for each other without hesitation." His voice grew quieter. "And they remember. Humans never forget an insult, never forgive an injury. They will pursue revenge across generations. Their history is filled with wars fought over events that happened centuries before. They call this honor. We call it madness, but it makes them relentless." Listened in growing unease. This did not sound like the primitive species her advisors had described before the war. "What about their military capabilities?" she asked. Brought up new images. These showed human warfare throughout history. The High Arbiter watched scenes of incredible violence unfold. "Humans have been fighting since before they developed writing," explained. "They fought each other for territory, for resources, for religious beliefs, for political ideologies, sometimes for no reason at all. They spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing." The images grew more disturbing. Cities burning, bodies stacked in piles, weapons that could destroy everything for miles around. "They developed weapons capable of cracking their own planet. And then they used them against themselves, not once but twice, and they still did not stop fighting. Felt that unfamiliar sensation again, the one she had felt in the conquered chamber: doubt, fear. They invented concepts that do not exist in any other species, continued. Total war. The idea that every resource, every citizen, every aspect of society must be dedicated to victory. Scorched earth. The willingness to destroy their own territory rather than let an enemy have it. Mutually assured destruction. The acceptance that a conflict might end with both sides dead. He turned to face directly. High Arbiter, we cannot defeat the humans using conventional warfare. They are too adaptable, too creative, too willing to accept losses. They do not fight to win battles. They fight to win wars. They will sacrifice 1,000,000 soldiers to gain a strategic advantage. They will burn their own worlds to deny us resources. They will chase us until one of us is extinct. Was silent for a long moment. What do you recommend? She finally asked. Hesitated. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Immediate, unconditional surrender. The words hung in the air like poison. The Dominion does not surrender, said. Her voice was hard and cold. We have never surrendered. We will never surrender. Then the Dominion will die, replied simply. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. The humans will not stop. They cannot stop. It is not in their nature. They will keep fighting until they have nothing left, and then they will find something else to fight with. Before could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. What is happening? She demanded. Her security chief rushed into the throne room. His crystal face was cracked with panic. High Arbiter, we are under attack. Human soldiers have infiltrated They have struck 3 military command centers. They have assassinated High Council members, and they have. An explosion shook the palace. Dust fell from the ceiling. Guards rushed to protect their leader. They have what? Shouted. They have left a message, the security chief said. In the Grand Plaza, burned into the stone. Pushed past her guards and walked to the window. She looked out at the great plaza that had stood for 6,000 years. The place where the Dominion celebrated its victories, the heart of civilization. Words were carved into the ancient stone. They burned with chemical fire that no one could extinguish. The message was short. UWANTED our WORLDS. We are going to take yours instead. This is what happens when you go to war with primates who practiced killing each other for 1,000,000 years. Surrender or extinction. Your choice. Stared at the burning words. The humans had struck the heart of her empire. They had killed her council members. They had desecrated her sacred plaza, and they had done it all in just 2 months. How had they done this? She thought about what the analyst had said. Persistence predators, death world survivors, a species that never stopped, never surrendered, never forgot. She had wanted a quick war, a simple conquest, another trophy to add to the Dominion's collection. Instead, she had awakened something terrible, something that would not rest until one of them was destroyed. In the plaza below, the message continued to burn. The flames spelled out humanity's promise in letters 20 feet tall. And somewhere in the darkness of human soldiers were already preparing their next attack. 5 months into the war, and the Dominion was bleeding. The humans had not just defended their colonies. They had launched a full counterattack. Human fleets struck deep into space. Human soldiers fought on a dozen worlds, and everywhere they went, they found allies. The 63 species that the Dominion had conquered over 6,000 years were rising up. The humans gave them weapons. The humans gave them training. The humans gave them hope. For the first time in its history, the Dominion was fighting a war on multiple fronts, and it was losing. Fleet Commander stood on the bridge of his new flagship and stared at the planet below. The sacred Forge world. The place where the Dominion built its mightiest warships. If the humans took this world, the war was over. had been given one final chance to redeem himself. The defeats at New Carthage had destroyed his reputation. His name had become a joke among the younger officers. They called him the broken behind his back. Today, he would prove them wrong. Today, he would destroy the human fleet and turn the tide of the war. His force was impressive. 200 warships defended the Forge world. Orbital defense platforms bristled with weapons. Ground-based missile batteries could strike targets in orbit. Every approach was covered. Every angle was defended. The humans were coming with only 80 ships. "They are insane," his tactical officer said. "They cannot hope to win with such a small force." Did not reply. He had learned not to underestimate humans. Their Admiral Wei had never lost a battle. Intelligence reports said she was brilliant, ruthless, and completely without mercy. Her great-grandmother had survived something called the Nanjing Massacre. The intelligence files described it as a human atrocity so terrible that it still haunted their species 300 years later. Had grown up hearing stories of what one group of humans had done to another. She knew exactly what her species was capable of. "The human fleet is entering weapons range," the sensor officer announced. "They are maintaining formation. No unusual activity." Watch the display. The human ships were arranged in a standard attack pattern. Nothing clever, nothing surprising, just a straight advance toward his defensive line. It was too simple, was famous for her tricks. Why was she attacking so directly? "Launch fighters," commanded. "Begin long-range bombardment. Let us see what she does." The battle began. Fighters swarmed toward the human fleet. Energy beams lanced across space. Missiles tracked their targets and accelerated to attack speed. The first human ships began taking damage. But they did not break formation. They did not retreat. They kept coming. Frowned what was doing. "Commander," his sensor officer said suddenly, "I am detecting anomalous readings from the asteroid belt. There may be." The ambush began. 50 human ships emerged from the asteroids behind the Dominion fleet. They had been hiding there for days, running silent, waiting for this moment. Their weapons began firing before could react. "Turn the rear squadrons," he shouted. "Engage the new contacts." But the attack from behind was only the beginning. The 80 ships in front suddenly changed their formation. They split into dozens of small groups and accelerated to maximum speed. Instead of engaging his fleet directly, they began weaving through his formation, targeting specific ships with surgical precision. Watched in horror as systematically destroyed his command structure. Every ship she targeted was a commander's vessel. Every officer she killed was essential to his battle plan. "She knows our communication protocols," his tactical officer said. "She knows which ships are most important. She has been studying us." Of course she had. Humans were patience predators. They prepared for their hunts. They learned everything about their prey. And had been prey from the moment he entered this system. The battle raged for 11 hours, used every strategy he knew. He tried encirclement, broke through his lines. He tried concentrated fire, scattered her ships and attacked from all angles. He tried to protect his remaining commanders, killed them anyway. By hour 8, his fleet was in chaos. Ships were fighting individually, without coordination. Officers were giving contradictory orders. Crews were abandoning damaged vessels. The legendary discipline of the Dominion military had collapsed. Made a desperate decision. "All ships full attack," he commanded. "Charge the enemy flagship. If we can kill, the humans will fall apart." It was a gamble, a final desperate throw of the dice. His remaining ships surged forward. They had lost half their number, but they still outnumbered the humans. If they could close to point-blank range, their heavier weapons would make the difference. Was waiting for them. As the Dominion fleet charged, nuclear mines detonated in sequence across their path. The explosions were not strong enough to destroy warships, but they blinded sensors and disrupted formations. Ships crashed into each other. Weapons fired on friendly targets by mistake. And then the human Marines came. Boarding pods launched from ships. Thousands of human soldiers flew through space in tiny metal coffins, aiming for the largest Dominion vessels. They crashed into hulls, cut through armor with plasma torches, and poured inside. His flagship was hit by 12 boarding pods. He fought. For the first time in his life, the fleet commander picked up a weapon and joined the battle. He killed 3 humans before they reached the bridge. His guards killed a dozen more. It was not enough. The humans moved like water. They flowed around obstacles. They covered each other with perfect coordination. They never stopped advancing. When one fell, another took their place. They were not fighting for glory or honor. They were fighting to win. A young human soldier broke through the last line of defenders. He was wounded. His armor was cracked. His face was covered in blood, some of it his own, most of it not. Raised his weapon. The human was faster. 3 rounds hit in the chest. He felt his crystal body cracking. He fell to the deck of his own bridge, the battle still raging around him. The human stood over him. He was breathing hard. His eyes were tired and old despite his young face. Hal whispered, "How did your people become like this?" The human looked at him for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was flat and empty. "We grew up on a world that tried to kill us every day. We killed everything that was stronger than us, everything that was faster, everything that was more dangerous. And when we ran out of predators, we fought each other." He reloaded his weapon with mechanical precision. "We spent 10,000 years learning how to end things, how to break armies, how to destroy civilizations, how to make our enemies wish they had never been born." He knelt beside. "And then you came along and reminded us what we really are. So thank you, Commander. You gave us permission to stop pretending." Tried to speak, but his voice would not come. "Do not worry," the human said. "Your species will survive. We are not here to destroy you. We are here to teach you a lesson." He stood up and walked away, leaving dying on the deck. The battle ended 3 hours later. The Dominion lost 167 ships. The Forge world fell. The Dominion's ability to build new warships was crippled. Across the galaxy, news of the defeat spread like wildfire. The Dominion had been broken. And the humans were just getting started. 11 months after the war began, it was over. The great chamber of the Galactic Concord was full again. 1,000 alien delegates sat in their seats, watching history unfold. But this time, the fear in the air was mixed with something else: wonder, amazement, disbelief. The mighty Dominion had fallen. High Arbiter walked through the chamber with slow, heavy steps. Her crystal body was still beautiful, but it seemed dimmer now. The light did not dance through her the way it once had. She looked old, tired, defeated. 11 months ago, she had stood in this same room and declared war on humanity. She had been so confident, so certain of victory. The Dominion had conquered 63 species. What was one more? Now she knew the answer. Director was waiting for her at the center of the chamber. The human looked exactly the same as she had 11 months ago. Calm, patient, steady. If the war had changed her at all, it did not show on her face. On the table between them lay the Treaty of Reconciliation. It was a simple document, only a few pages long, but those pages contained the end of everything the Dominion had been. Reparations. The Dominion would pay for the damage it had caused. Demilitarization. The Dominion would reduce its military to a fraction of its former size. Liberation. Every species the Dominion had conquered would be set free. And a public apology, broadcast across the entire galaxy, admitting what the Dominion had done, acknowledging the crimes it had committed. Picked up the document and read through it one final time. The terms were harsh. Her people would suffer for generations. but they would survive. That was more than she had expected. The humans had won, completely, utterly. They had destroyed the Dominion's military. They had conquered its worlds. They had broken its power forever. They could have demanded anything. They could have demanded extinction. But they had not. Looked at Director. The human met her gaze without flinching. "Before I sign this," said, "I must ask you one question." Nodded. "Ask." "Why?" The word came out as a whisper. "Why did you not destroy us? You had the power. Your soldiers wanted revenge. I saw the hatred in their eyes when they conquered my worlds. They wanted to burn everything, kill everyone, make us pay for every drop of blood we had spilled." She paused, her crystalline voice trembling. "But you stopped them, you showed mercy. Why?" The chamber was completely silent. Every delegate leaned forward, waiting for the answer. This was the question they all wanted to ask, the question that had confused and terrified them throughout the war. The humans were monsters. Everyone knew that now. They were death world predators who had spent 1,000,000 years perfecting the art of killing. They should have been the most ruthless, the most violent, the most destructive force in the galaxy. But they were not. Was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft and tired. "Because we have been the monster before." She looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. "You think you know what humans are. You have read the reports. You have seen the battles. You know about our history of violence, our wars, our atrocities. You know that we are dangerous." She paused. "But you do not know what it costs us." She took a deep breath. "We have done terrible things. We have burned cities and killed millions. We have enslaved entire nations. We have tried to wipe out people who looked different or thought different or prayed to different gods. Every crime you can imagine, we have committed. Every horror you can dream of, we have made real." Her voice grew heavier. "And every time, some of us remembered who we wanted to be instead of what we were capable of being. Every time, some of us stood up and said, 'No more.' Every time, we crawled back from the edge of the abyss and tried to be better." She looked directly at. "That is the truth about humanity. We are not good. We are not evil. We are both always fighting inside ourselves. Every day we choose which one we will be. Every day we have to decide whether to be the monster or the hero." She picked up the treaty and held it out too. "This war proved something to us. It proved that we are still the apex predators who conquered a death world. It proved that when you push us, we can still become the most terrifying thing in the galaxy. We unlocked all those instincts we have spent centuries trying to control. We remembered what we really are." Her hand was steady as she held the document. "So we had a choice. We could give in to it. We could burn your worlds and slaughter your people and take everything you had. We could become the monsters you feared. Part of us wanted to. Part of us still wants to." She shook her head slowly. "But we chose not to. Not because you deserve mercy. You do not. You started this war. You killed our people. You threatened to destroy everything we had built." Her eyes met. "We chose mercy because we needed to. Because the line between what we are and what we could become is thin and fragile. Because every time we cross that line, it becomes easier to cross it again. Because if we had destroyed you, we would have proven that the monster was all we were." She smiled. It was a tired, sad smile. "So thank you, High Arbiter. You gave us an enemy, a righteous cause, an excuse to let loose everything we have been trying to control, and you gave us a chance to choose the right side anyway." Took the treaty. Her crystal hands were shaking. "I do not understand you," she whispered. "I do not think I ever will." "No," agreed. "You probably will not, but that is all right. You do not need to understand us. You just need to remember this moment. Remember what we could have done. Remember what we chose instead." She stepped back. "And remember that the choice is always there. For you, for us, for everyone. We can always choose to be better than our worst instincts. Looked at the treaty one final time, then she signed it. The war was over. 50 years later, a young historian finished writing her account of the Human Dominion War. It would become required reading at every military academy in the galaxy. It would be translated into 1,000 languages. It would change the way every species thought about humanity. The final passage read, "I have spent my life studying the humans. I have read their histories. I have learned their languages. I have walked their worlds and spoken with their people, and I still do not fully understand them. They are capable of incredible cruelty. They can hate with a passion that burns across generations. They can destroy with a thoroughness that leaves nothing behind. When they go to war, they fight with a fury that terrifies everyone who witnesses it. But they are also capable of incredible kindness. They can love with a depth that transcends species and circumstance. They can build with a creativity that amazes even the oldest civilizations. When they choose to help, they give everything they have without asking for anything in return. They are both of these things at once, always, forever. Do not mistake their kindness for weakness. Do not assume their internal conflicts make them divided. Do not believe their short lives make them impatient or their soft bodies make them fragile. They are the children of a world that forged them in fire, famine, and blood. They have looked into the abyss of their own extinction a dozen times and walked back carrying weapons. They have faced their own darkest nature and chosen, again and again, to be something more. They are not the most advanced species in the galaxy. They are not the oldest but they are, without question, the most dangerous and the most remarkable. Pray you never give them a reason to remember the monster inside them. But if you must face them, remember this: they can also choose to be heroes. Sometimes that makes all the difference.